Pack said Thug Life stood for "The hate you give little infants f***s everybody." THUGLIFE, meaning what society gives us as youth, it bites them in the ass when we wild out. Before you is a famous quote from a peculiar bestseller by author Angie Thomas under the name of The Hate You Give. The novel, which was published in the year of 2017, deals primarily with racial injustice and the division of society. This main topic, namely racial injustice, manifests in the story as the killing of a young man named Kaleem, a childhood friend of the protagonist and witness of the killing. Star Carter, during a routine traffic stop by a lone police officer. The novel contains a large amount of violent imagery such as shootings and arson, profanity, for instance the use of the N-word, strong portrayals of the police force, such as depictions of some officers in a very aggressive, cold and detached manner, discussions of sexual content and references to illicit substances, particularly the distribution thereof. Thus it has been banned in the United States in a variety of educational institutions and libraries. In spite of these reasons mentioned prior, the novel conveys a variety of messages as well and holds a spotlight on key cultural and racial issues. These include, but are not limited to, police violence and systemic racism, stereotypes of the racial kind, and the hardships in maintaining two separate identities. Furthermore, the novel deals with themes of suppression and standing up and using one's voice even in such times. A certain message regarding activism and holding one's ground in order to gather the courage to speak, even if such is against one's own perceived interests, is conveyed as well. The two most prominent themes in the novel are as follows. The primary theme, namely the one which concerns itself racism and justice, emerges through the novel's discussion of Kaleem's death, which is a direct result of his disobedience during a traffic stop in Chapter 2. Here, an officer, who is referred to as 115 by his badge number, fatally shoots Kaleem after he disobeys a direct command not to move. A discussion later on in the book between Star and her uncle, who works in the police force, handles the closer grounds for the shooting, where Star draws a hypothetical situation where Kaleem is replaced by a white businessman in a suit. Here the uncle replies that "put your hands where I can see them" is a preferable response rather than directly discharging the weapon, highlighting the systemic racism present in the book's world. Racism is further tackled in another form, namely when it is framed as simple jokes by classmates. During the course of the story, Star finds herself in various predicaments where a member of her school, which is almost exclusively attended by white rich students, says racist remarks, expecting Star to simply laugh with the joke, despite it being at her expense. The notion of justice for Kaleem's death, aimed at Officer 115, is also tackled, in the sense that justice is never given, and that the officer is simply never indicted by the grand jury in the trial for Kaleem's murder. This event aims to show the protection of people in power by the system, such as police officers, despite unjust circumstances. The secondary theme then covers the topic of voice. Throughout the story, Star grips with a variety of problems, where she needs to suppress her own thoughts in front of different people. During the beginning, she often refuses to talk to anyone but her immediate family and closest of friends about the events which she witnessed. But as the story progresses, Star finds it imperative to put her own words out into the world, and by the end she ends up joining a protest for the justice of Kaleem in full force, standing on top of a car while shouting for justice. Now, in order to put Star under the magnifying glass, one simply needs to closely examine her inner world in the story. This is made trivial by the fact that the story is narrated in a first-person perspective from Star's point of view. As the main protagonist and narrator, her development is clear throughout the narrative, as she tackles her own silence and impulses. Thus, in the beginning, she is defined by her own restraint and masking of her true identity and voice. Such moments can be, for instance, found when she refuses to tell anyone in her school about her distress regarding the shooting and even lies to her uncle as to why she wanted to excuse herself out of it. Of course, in the end of the book, Star finds the courage to speak up, partially after her own father, Maverick, urges her not to stay silent and to speak. This is a typical development of character for younger people, and it specializes in showing how one can grow up and find courage to challenge the system. Her father Maverick, mentioned prior, is an important character for the plot as well, as he plays a central role in educating Star, not only about proper behavior in front of the police, such as obeying orders and keeping one's hands in sight of the officer at all times, but he also plays a sort of mentor role for Star, specifically during the talk about speaking up. But this also manifests in the former point mentioned. Now, to back up the core of the novel, its themes of black identity, racism, justice, and protest are dealt with very well, such that they, as ongoing societal problems, spark internal debates within the reader. It can often be interpreted by a variety of first-time readers that Kaleem's death may have been justified from the police's point of view. For instance, such that Kaleem was failing to obey orders from armed and stressed police officers in a dangerous situation. But this theme is thoroughly dissected precisely for the sake of these readers, to show them that systemic racism is truly a large issue plaguing modern society to this day. Thus, powerful is a valid and necessary attribute to assign to the notions expressed in this novel, as it deals exactly with the issues of prejudice and attempting to overcome them through protest. It urges readers to be compassionate for the cause of black rights movements and to join in, but warns them that they may never truly understand, just like the protests done by students of Star's primarily white high school. Now, interestingly enough, the book, due to these discussions of more mature yet important topics, has been banned, but it is, in my own view, not in the slightest justified, as a thorough discussion of them is good and even required in order to efficiently convey the messages the book possesses. So, to sum everything up, what has been said in this clip of audio, The Hate You Give is a banned 2017 novel that deals with racism, prejudice, and the black rights movement from the perspective of a young teenager, Star, as she struggles and eventually succeeds to find her own voice in a chaotic, complicated world. The key takeaway is rather simple. Do not be afraid to do what is right, even if it means stepping up to authority, or even if the consequences you conceive before doing such may be against your own interests. Thank you for listening.